Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&As, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. And this is kind of personal, and I figure I'll open with this one because I was going to mention again my Patreon in the Q&As, and someone actually asked me about it, so let me go ahead and just start off with that before we get into all the training questions. And he asked, why have you opened a Patreon after saying less than 2 months ago people shouldn't donate to them? For someone who made $6K in December, it seems strange you suddenly flip your opinion. Yeah, brother, it's a grand conspiracy. It's a big, massive conspiracy that I would just flip my opinion. No, the difference here, I've been planning a Patreon for about 6 months. I've just been too lazy to get around to it. It was just a matter of making the time, looking into it, of how to get it started. I wanted to do something with it that would be unique content that I'm not providing on YouTube. In other words, I'm not opposed to making more money on the internet. And when I talk about people ripping people off, or these people just asking purely for donations and providing nothing else in return while claiming they're not making a good living on YouTube, that's my problem. I don't mind making more money if me making more money comes at providing additional service to people. Just like eventually, when I get around to it, might not be this year, probably won't be this year, I'll get into merchandising. I may do ebooks eventually, but the thing is, I'm not going to just start a Patreon and say, hey, please send me money for no reason. I'm just not going to do that. So I've already started answering people's questions there, like their personal questions about their training, stuff like that. That's what I'm doing there. I'm putting up content that is questionable under YouTube's policies, because YouTube is sometimes anti-firearm, they're anti-anabolics, they're anti-discussion of legalizing various drugs and things. And I'm a libertarian conservative politically. So I just believe in less overall government restriction, and some of my videos between my couple of channels have been popped, and that happening and that becoming an issue has led me to realize I needed another format to discuss this. And people said that before, hey, why don't you start something where you can do some gear talks? Other people have wanted me from my gun channel to be able to discuss firearm politics more, and my Patreon just allows me to do a catch-all of topics that might be censored on YouTube that I can discuss freely. That's it. That's all there is to it, guys. That's all there is to it. And I actually am running the lowest minimum threshold that they allow for people to buy in. So I'm not like doing a $10 Patreon or anything like that. So no, I'm there, and I've been answering people's questions and covering those topics. And so yeah, I'll probably answer a few people's questions every week. And things like that. So I'm there actually trying to just provide an additional service, and me putting in additional extra work online. There's no grand conspiracy that, oh my gosh, I'm broke or something crazy like that. It just is what it is. It's something I've been planning on doing for at least 6 months. I just needed time to get around to researching how to do it. So yeah, hopefully that dispels any myths that there's a grand conspiracy. And no, I'm not there begging for money. I am actually putting up pretty much daily content there, just like I do on YouTube. All right, next question. Question about Bulgarian Light and recovery. So I sleep 8 to 9 hours a day. I work as a server at a bar, so not too physically intensive, just a lot of walking 5 days a week. I have 6 beers or so. The other days I have no alcohol. Will my alcohol consumption eliminate me from being able to recover from a Bulgarian Light style approach? I'm 235 pounds at 6 foot, and I've run Bulgarian Light in the past with great success, but less alcohol. Honestly, there's some myths on that. A lot of people seem to have this idea that a lot of professional elite athletes don't drink enormous amounts of alcohol. The reality is they do. In fact, a lot of Eastern Bloc countries who excel and win gold medals in weightlifting drink very large amounts of alcohol even when they train. So let's just get that myth out of the way. Alcohol is actually tested for in the Olympics. Do you know why? Because it's a performance-enhancing drug. And it's high-octane training fuel. So no, it's not going to be a problem. The issue might be, will your health potentially suffer in the long term? Could you have some liver issues from drinking 6 beers every night? Maybe. Maybe that's between you and your doctor. You might want to periodically get your liver values checked. What I will say here, though, where you're going to see interference with recovery might be if you are not full natty, brah. That's where your concern comes in. If you're stacking a bunch of oral anabolics or pro-hormones or something like that with 6 drinks a night, the toxicity in your system and on your liver is going to really start to add up. And so in that case, that could interfere with your recovery. But if you're also doing something like that, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that your recovery from your training is probably the least of your concerns. Your long-term health, your health and well-being is a concern at that point. And as far as drinking goes, actually, I have a drink before bed every single night while training this way. I have a drink before bed every night, either Jaeger or red wine. And I'm recovering just fine. I'm not having 6, but I have a drink before bed every night. It helps me sleep. You know what? And sleep helps recovery. All right, next question. What's a good strength and conditioning program for an individual wanting to go into SF? And by SF, he means Special Forces. All right, this gets asked a couple times a year, actually. I've probably answered this about 5 times over the years. So you need to remember what I'm going to say. First of all, yes, you want to be as strong as possible and you want to have as much endurance as possible before you try out for any Special Forces branch in any branch of the military. What I'm going to recommend, you need to go on a maximum strength program. You need to go on a serious endurance program. I would check out some of Alex Viada's work with Hybrid Athlete. And actually, Alex works with quite a few Special Forces veterans in continuing their physical training and things. He actually does quite a bit of work in that area. So he's actually intimately familiar with a lot of their needs. So that would be someone to check out. But the thing is, yeah, you want to get as strong as humanly possible while still keeping your conditioning up. That's basically what it comes down to. Any max strength program, any proven strength program, get as strong as possible in your squats, deadlifts, overhead press, bench, weighted chin-ups. Work capacity matters. Build your endurance. But here's the problem you're going to run into. And people need to understand this. When you're talking about going into Special Forces, and it doesn't matter what branch of the military you're talking about, that is basically like saying, how should I train to get an NFL contract? How should I train to get a full scholarship as a D1 athlete in my sport? Right? That's the equivalent level of question. Well, people will tell you, well, you're going to have to be born gifted. That's what it comes down to. What they are looking for in Special Forces are a couple of traits, and this is part of their screening process. And it doesn't mean that you're not a fantastic soldier. It doesn't mean that you're not an amazing physical specimen. It means you might not have the specific personality, mental, and physical attributes that they absolutely require that you cannot train for. Now, being in as good a shape as you can possibly be, being able to shoot as good as you possibly can, that's useful. Work on that, absolutely. But you need to understand they are looking for people who are athletically gifted. In other words, the people who go into Special Forces, number one, probably have good enough athletic genetics that had they decided to play football or something else, or basketball, they probably could have got a scholarship, right? They probably could have got a scholarship at university. They're genetically gifted athletes. Number two, they look for nonlinear thinkers, and you're born that way. You cannot train yourself to do that. They look for people who are unique problem solvers. And it's almost a contradiction because everywhere else in the military, that is not what they look for. And you need to remember that there are plenty of amazing physical specimens who are basic infantry. There are plenty of guys in basic infantry who can lift enormous amounts of weights, who can run 20 miles humping a full loadout, who are marksman shooters, who are basic infantry. Special Forces, they are looking for non-linear thinkers, which is, again, they want linear thinkers in most of the military. They want guys who are good at following orders, doing what they're told, doing a good job at it. That's not what they're looking for there. They need people who can think outside of the box and solve problems in ways that they can't predict. So that they throw unique problems at them and they can't figure out how they're going to solve it. and they let them solve them. They're looking for unique problem solvers who are extremely athletically gifted, who have an unusual level of drive. All right, so you're looking at basically 3 physical traits, and that's what they're selecting for. Those are all genetic. Now, if you're not in amazing shape, you're not going to make the cut anyways. But just looking at it that way, if you're not a nonlinear thinker, you are wasting your time. That you are not going to make it through selection. But, give it a go. Get as strong as possible. Build your endurance up and your work capacity up so that you can hump a load out in a backpack for 20 miles. And go after it if it's what you want to do. But just don't feel bad if you're not selected, because you may not have the specific traits they're looking for, and that doesn't make you a bad person. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.